So, I'm a diabetic, and this channel is dedicated to diabetes, but also at my core, I like business, right? Like, my degree is in business finance. I more or less run a business as a job. And so when I see headlines like this, and these headlines aren't clickbait, these are directly from Medtronic, it sparks something in me, and I just want to discuss it, why Medtronic is losing. And so let's take a look at that second headline and dive even a little bit deeper. Obviously, 7% decline is not good at all. But when you focus in on the United States and see that revenue is down in the high teens, that's tragic. It's terrible. And we'll go into more detail as to why that is. And there's a few reasons why, and we'll go into that later in the video. But honestly, I think it's about to get even worse. I think that their market share is going to keep declining at an even faster rate. So just a little bit of my backstory. When I was first diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, this was pre-Obamacare era, and my dad owned a small business, which meant that he just frankly did not have a lot of options for good healthcare insurance. And frankly, he didn't really need it, because before I was diagnosed with diabetes, like, everybody was in my family was really pretty healthy, and we didn't really see a need for, super low cost deductibles and high premium plans. Or then, shock to the system is when I got diabetes, and I just remember, like, my insurance just, like, would not cover, like, any insulin pump except for, like, this one, but I don't remember what brand it was, but I just remember the diabetes educator being like, yeah, this brand's willing to, like, be more cooperative with insurance and get you a better deal, but they were like, we really recommend Medtronic. Medtronic's the best in the business, and that's what my family got me. They got me the minimed 530G, I believe is the model it was. But that was my first, like, introduction to Medtronic, was, hey, this is the best of the best, and my parents were willing to pay a premium for that, and I'm grateful they were in a position to do so. And honestly, for the longest time, I stuck with Medtronic, and I had that perception that it was the best in the business. And for a while, I loved it, and I had no complaints. I even remember back in 2012, I had a pump that was in warranty fail, and I remember calling Medtronic's helpline, and they got, like, automated messages that play while you're waiting for a customer service representative to pick up. And I remember they were talking about how they were making strides in artificial pancreas technology, and really what it was is just, with the M-Lite sensor, it would suspend on loop. I just remember thinking, holy crap, like, this company is going to be the one that is just pushing everything forward, and eventually it's just going to make life so much easier. And in many ways, they were. Like, the Medtronic 670G was the first hybrid closed loop system to be FDA approved, and it was a game changer. And it was my first real introduction to using a modern CGM. And my first ever video that I posted on YouTube was my video review of the 670G, which, if you haven't seen it yet, it's a bit long, it's a bit cringe, but I'll put the link up here if you haven't seen it yet. And if you've seen that video or any of the other videos where I talk about Medtronic, you know how I feel about it. I love the pump. It's my favorite algorithm by far, but I hate the sensor. And I think that's at the root cause of this. So, take me as an example here, right? I used Medtronic for years, and honestly, I had about a year stockpile of Medtronic insulin pump supplies, reservoirs, infusion sets. If the Medtronic pump could do a closed loop with the Dexcom, never in a million years would I have ever switched. It was a very conscious choice to switch from the Medtronic pump to the Tandem. But the difference in sensors was just that compelling. And honestly, like, I meet a lot of diabetics through trials and other stuff. Every time I see a diabetic, I say hi. I'm like, hey man, I'm a diabetic too. I know a lot of people that are still on Medtronic pumps, most of them the 670G. But of everyone that I've met, and I'm talking like dozens of people, I can only remember one that actually uses the Medtronic sensor. And hi, Sarah, if you're watching this, yes, Travis is the one that does use the Medtronic sensor. But everybody else either just tests their blood sugar or uses it with a Libre. And I think the reason for that is pretty obvious. I mean, that minimed sensor is really that inferior. And honestly, like every insurance plan I've been on, it seems like I switch insurance providers every single year. Every single one that I've been on has had the Medtronic sensor, the Guardian Sensor 3, like on a way lower formula tier than the Dexcom and the Libre. So not only is it worse, it's also way more expensive, and it shows that Medtronic isn't even committed to making it more affordable. And I mentioned earlier that Medtronic's problem is going to get worse, and this is why this is kind of a ticking time bomb, because all those people that are on the Libre 3 is rolling out now, and they're going to realize what it's like to have a tiny, great continuous glucose monitor that, you know, doesn't require any scanning or anything. It's just always connected to your phone. And everybody that's on the 670G and who's had it, you know, for a year or more is out of warranty now, right? So they don't have a new Medtronic pump to upgrade to, but they're reading this new sensor. Most natural step after that is to upgrade to the T-Slim, which pairs with that Freestyle Libre 3. And I think that any half-decent endo would be like, yeah, you're on the Libre 3. Did you know that the Tandem T-Slim X2, did you know that that pairs with that and that you'll be in a full closed loop then? If you're already on the Libre 3, why would you possibly say no to that if you're out of warranty and you got decent coverage on a new pump? This, of course, will lead to further diabetic revenue loss from Medtronic, which will further justify not spending more money on R&D, and which will put it even further behind, and the cycle will just kind of repeat and repeat. So we need to do something to break the cycle, and here's what I would do if I was Medtronic. So the way that I see it, they really have two routes here, but both of those routes share the same beginning steps. And beginning step number one is they absolutely need to focus on getting the quality control on their pumps right. They need to devote any and all resources from the CGM manufacturing and development and just focus on making great pumps again. And you know, that's not to say that the pumps aren't great, because the pumps themselves are great. It's these quality control issues that have led to the FDA warning and all the health risks for all the patients. Like they need to own in on that and just focus on making a rock solid product that doesn't have any issues. And then number two, they need to open up their compatibility with all the CGMs on the market, right? So the Tandem T-Slim X2, it works with the Dexcom G6 and the Libre 3. I think that these are the minimum that Medtronic should, you know, communicate with. But if I were them, I would just go all out and I would pair with Senseonics, and I would just try to establish a partnership with every single CGM on the market. That way, there's not that compelling reason to leave and go to a different brand like there was for me, right? If the Dexcom G6 worked with the Medtronic pump, I never in a million years would have left. And then here's kind of where the branches diverge. Branch number one is they can just realize that it's a lost cause, that they're too far behind, and just abandon the CGM game. Focus on those partnerships and just focus on making really rock solid pump and make the profit off of the pump and the pump supplies. Personally, if I was in charge of Medtronic, this is the route that I would go. Just based on what I know about the company and the trials that I've done recently for them, and you know where they're at in the pipeline of the new sensors rolling out, I think that they're just too far behind. I think that it's a losing battle. It's tough for me to say because I am a huge advocate for competition, but they're not even competing right now. And then branch number two would be pretty much the complete opposite of that, and that's just to throw everything that you got at the CGM market, right? So once you have the quality control issues on the pumps regarded and you're just making solid pumps, you got the partnerships in place so that nobody in the meantime while you're developing a better CGM is going to leave you. That's the point, that you just throw everything at the CGM development and you make the best CGM on the market. And what would the best CGM on the market be? I think that it would kind of be in between the Libre 3 and the Dexcom G7, right? So I think the Dexcom G7 is the leader in accuracy, but they kind of charge a premium for it. So I think if you can get accuracy numbers, really close to Dexcom's, which, granted isn't easy, but if you're throwing everything, all your resources at that, it might be attainable. But then I would make that sensor as affordable as the Libre 3. This also would have the huge benefit of them being able to treat the type 2 diabetes market. I would consider it, but again, they're going to need to play some major catch up. Another caveat here, though, is that they are working on an integrated insulin pump infusion set that has a CGM built in. That is cool, and if that's even close and is accurate, then yeah, bring that to market. That's sick. These are just my thoughts, and like I said, if Medtronic just keeps on the path that they're on, I think that it is just going to be a negative spiral of reduced earnings, which means less R&D, which means an inferior product, which leads to less earnings, so on and so forth. And really, I have so much respect for Medtronic. I really do. And I want them to be a very competitive product. And I would love to go back to a Medtronic pump. Honestly, I would, if it integrated with the Dexcom. But as it stands right now, even if the 670G does release soon in the US, there is almost no way that I could recommend somebody get a Medtronic pump over a Tandem t:slim X2 or a Omnipod 5 that integrates with the Dexcom. There's just no way that I could recommend it, and it's 100% because that sensor is so inferior. Anyways, just my quick thoughts here. If you disagree with me, let me know. I'd love to discuss this with you. If you agree with me, give this video a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.